PowerWash Simulator 2 was born from a classic sequel dilemma: how to expand an unexpected success without sacrificing the heart that won over the community. FutureLab first looked inward, facing the technical limitations of the original game, built with a different ambition and budget, and decided that the best way forward would be to treat the continuation as a natural expansion, not a reinvention. This sounds simple, but it is a heavy design choice. To keep the relaxing, frictionless cleaning experience as an inviolable pillar while restructuring the technological base to support modern systems. For me, this intentional conservatism is a sign of maturity. The team understood that the differential was not in gamifying more, but in polishing the tactile fantasy of cleaning until it shines. Instead of stacking new loops on top of the central loop, the studio aimed for more and better of what already works. This direction is evident in the prioritization of quality of life improvements, new equipment, and more expressive scenarios, all designed to increase the variety of what you clean, not the way you clean. I particularly like this respect for the audience. There is an understanding that the pleasure comes from the act, the visual and sonic cadence of watching the dirt disappear, a flow that breaks if you impose stress meters, aggressive counters, or punitive failures. Holding back the temptation to make the design more video game and less ritual is a difficult decision, and it gives me confidence. Much of the work, as can be seen, was paying technical debt to free up repressed ambitions. Shared progression architecture, persistent multi-user experience without workarounds, robust support for real verticality, and more stable surface and dirt systems require a new foundation. Technically, it is the difference between being able to do it and being able to scale. And a good sequel is one that scales. In my reading, FutureLab chose to spend the invisible budget, the one the player does not see in the trailer, but feels in every session that flows smoothly, and in every feature that stops being a promise and becomes routine. The other strong vector is the community. The first game became a living catalog of requests, reaching high areas naturally, tweaking detergents to have a clearer and more satisfactory role, reducing redundant clicks and menus, giving more silky visual feedback while the water works. By prioritizing items that were in the fans' imagination, such as vertical access techniques and a more satisfying use of soap, the studio shows that it listened without mischaracterizing. It's a fine balance. Listening is not saying yes to everything. It is translating desires into systems that respect the core fantasy. I value when the response to feedback is structural, not just cosmetic. On the macro design level, the inclusion of a home base to call your own and an optional narrative form the cement of continuity. The house as a persistent element is not just a treat. It is an anchor of belonging that transforms a checklist of contracts into a path with identity. The story, treated as a layer that connects jobs and characters without being imposing, is the correct interpretation of the target audience. Those who want to dive in, dive in. Those who want to turn off their brains are not punished. I personally appreciate when the studio assumes that the primary fantasy is sensory and allows the narrative layer to be a companion, not a guide. Production and publishing also tell this story. By taking more control over its own launch and positioning itself to sustain the franchise in the long term, FutureLab trades the sprint for the marathon. This implies viable content pipelines, predictable cadence, and a clear vision of what service is without becoming an empty monetization crutch. From an indie studio perspective, it's a courageous step. Autonomy gives freedom but demands discipline. My impression is that the team preferred to promise less and deliver a solid core that can receive expansions without compromising the human touch of the project. There is a cultural posture that runs through everything, protecting the calm cleaning experience from any antagonistic mechanic that disrupts the rhythm. This is reflected in the co-op choices, with progress for everyone, including local, the care with the interface, and the feedback details that transform work into a Zen ritual. Personally, I find this coherence rare in sequels. Many studios lose their way trying to justify the two with noise. Here, the two is the permission to do right what was previously done with duct tape, and for me, that is the best kind of evolution. PowerWash Simulator 2 impressively expands the simple yet addictive premise of the first game, focusing on the relaxing experience of cleaning dirty surfaces with powerful water jets, but now with much more variety and depth in the gameplay. The essence remains the same. You are there, immersed in a contemplative rhythm of applying soap, scrubbing dirt, and rinsing. But the new mechanics make each session more diverse and satisfying. One of the biggest improvements is in the enhanced use of soap, which now wraps the dirt in a thick layer before being removed in a single, visually delicious jet. This adds an extra layer of strategy and tactile pleasure to the action of cleaning, which was the great charm of the previous game, but now enhanced so you feel more the weight of the dirt being efficiently eliminated. Another strong point of the gameplay is the introduction of innovative equipment such as the Swirl Force, a cleaning tool with rotating disc nozzles that is especially effective on large flat surfaces, like floors and panels. This brings a new sensation of tool use, which is not just about the power of the jet, but how you apply the force of the water to different textures and places. Besides the equipment, mobility gained prominence with the rappel mode, which allows climbing walls and reaching dirt in high points with impressive smoothness, elevating the cleaning experience to new levels both literally and figuratively. This ability achieves the feeling of professionalism and freedom in the execution of the work, something rare to feel in such calm games. The PowerWash Simulator 2 campaign is a sequel that maintains its focus on organic progression, but now with a new and longer campaign that takes place in different locations, each presenting unique cleaning challenges. These are adventures ranging from residential areas to eccentric environments such as parks, mini roller coasters, and even roadside motels, all immersed in an unhurried atmosphere that only the game knows how to create. Moreover, progress is now shared with other players in online co-op mode and even split screen, a great addition that allows bringing the fun and zen vibe to group multiplayer sessions, without losing the rhythm or the satisfaction of personal progress. Another aspect that caught my attention very positively is the player's customizable base, having a space to call your own, and being able to decorate it with restored furniture in this unexpected mix of cleaning and restoration brings a sense of continuity and belonging that was missing in the first game. It is comforting to know that all the dirt you cleaned contributed to palpable progress in your business and virtual life. Furthermore, the feline companions add a touch of cuteness and humanity, further smoothing the experience for those seeking genuine relaxation amidst the gameplay. What impresses me most is how much the game maintains the balance between truly engaging gameplay and the almost meditative serenity it inspires. You are not just cleaning. You are living a routine with its own rhythm, a type of manual work that allows the mind to wander while delivering consistent visual and mechanical rewards. This feeling of total control over the dirt, the absence of haste, and the immediate reward is a rare experience in games, and the two manages to amplify this without needing to transform the game into something too complex or stressful. The continued progress, cooperative modes, and improvements in the equipment portfolio make PowerWash Simulator 2 a game that not only reinforces the success of the original, but also brings novelties that justify returning for those who enjoyed that first contact. The fact that you can play together with friends, remove dirt in co-op or split screen, and still personalize your space leaves the experience sufficiently open to please both those who want to relax alone and those who want to share the vibe with other people. PowerWash Simulator 2 is not a game that stands out for a traditional and dense story as in many narrative titles, but this simplicity is what makes it unique and special for me. The game brings a light and optional narrative that unfolds as the player dives into the almost therapeutic pleasure of cleaning dirt with a high-pressure washer. The plot takes place in Muckingham, a city where you continue your cleaning business, but now with much more detail, characters, and some subtle twists, all punctuated by very light humor and a sense of community. This approach is great, because it maintains the focus on relaxing gameplay, but offers interesting depth for those who want to get more involved. The story functions as a direct continuation of the first game, where the characters we already know seem to have evolved, and where the effects of the previous game's events appear subtly in new challenges and locations. The main narrative is optional, revealed through dialogues, messages, and small details in the missions, which creates a layer of mystery and even a certain intriguing element. A peculiar example are the symbols and graffiti that appear and disappear, along with the presence of the mayor and his cat, charismatic characters who give a personal and fun touch to the experience, without disrupting the calm pace of the game. One of the most interesting aspects of the game's story for me is the introduction of the personal base, a space that the player can decorate with furniture and items earned in the missions. This space not only serves as a place of rest, but also brings a greater sense of belonging and continuity in the narrative. This shows how much the game has evolved. It stops being just a technical simulator and transforms this routine into something that feels like a lifestyle, reinforcing the idea that you are building a trajectory in the game world, which humanizes the experience very satisfactorily. The beauty of the story is in the contrast between its simplicity and the pleasure it provides. While you clean dirt, you discover small details of the lives of the characters and the environment behind the dirt, making cleaning more than a task, a calm adventure, but full of meaning. It is a narrative that grows in small moments, in the hidden details that, upon being discovered, create an unexpected connection with that dirty world you are transforming. What I admire most about the story is that it does not try to force a heavy plot, but it is there to make the experience carry even more meaning. The narrative works as a glue that unites various elements of the game, creating a welcoming, fun environment that respects the player's own rhythm. For those who, like me, seek a relaxing experience, with a touch of mystery and a lot of personality, this game shows how a story can be delivered with delicacy and intelligence, without the need for great dramas, but with a lot of charm and creativity. The cooperative, for me, is the point where the experience gains a totally new layer of fun and interaction. While the first was already relaxing and almost therapeutic in its solo proposal, now being able to share this cleaning routine with friends, both online and on split screen, transforms the moment into something almost ritualistic, a big virtual group clean. It is one of those perfect games to sit on the couch, gather people, and laugh at the absurd situations that only a simulator can provide. When everyone takes a sector and the hoses cross the scenario, the chaos can be unexpectedly fun, especially if someone ends up washing the companion instead of the walls. Local split screen marks a nostalgic evolution, bringing back that feeling of sharing the same game space. It is the type of function that is rare nowadays, and seeing it return here warms the heart of those who grew up disputing controllers and space with siblings or friends. In PowerWash Simulator 2, this means seeing, live, who is really meticulous and who leaves the corners dirty. Light competitiveness arises spontaneously. Who finishes first? Who does the most perfect wash? Who finds time to play with the soap? In online cooperative, the big deal is the shared progression in the campaign. There is no longer that frustration of helping someone and leaving the match without personal advancement. Now everyone earns the rewards and the progress is equal. This eliminates an old barrier in the genre, finally making the multiplayer mode fair and rewarding for all participants. I noticed that this encourages the formation of recurring groups, as each session is valid for the whole group, creating a collaborative and almost social routine. Large constructions, multi-stage missions, unexpected challenges. Everything becomes easier and more fun when no one is harmed in the progress. The rhythm of the cooperative gameplay is, curiously, more dynamic than I expected. When playing solo in the first title, the game was almost zen. In cooperative mode, however, there is a kind of dance between efficiency and play. It is possible to divide tasks, one on the windows, the other on the floor, or do a collective effort together to detonate that mountain of mud in record time. And of course, there is always room for light sabotage, that friend who decides to wash the colleague instead of the wall, just for the meme. This flexibility between cooperating and competing without pressure leaves the environment light and hilarious, just the way I like it in games for relaxing the brain. In addition, there is the freedom to personalize the base and see everything taking shape throughout the missions. It is nice to realize that while we clean together, we are also building a shared space of memories. The decoration of the base, the collected objects, and even the feline mascots create small cute moments in the interval between missions, feeding that sense of digital community. Another aspect that positively marked me is the variety of new tools and techniques which change the dynamics of the cooperative. Mobile platforms and rappel techniques allow each player to have a distinct role, whether exploring high places or focusing on details. This breaks the monotony and allows the group to organize better. In the end, discovering efficient cleaning strategies became almost a scavenger hunt, with everyone assuming different functions and suggesting insane methods to finish quickly or more beautifully. PowerWash Simulator 2, in the company of friends, is like transforming cleaning into an event, full of inside jokes, memes, blunders, and that collective satisfaction that only arises when everyone sees the impeccable final result. It is not just about cleaning, but about repeating the ritual together, creating silly memories that will probably last much longer than any virtual dirt. It is the type of game that makes you want to organize weekly sessions. Open the microphone and simply relax, because in the end, there is nothing more fun than seeing a filthy world turn into a sparkling work of art, and knowing that it was a team effort. PowerWash Simulator 2 brings a notorious evolution in the visual aspect compared to the first game in the series, adopting a more cartoonish and accessible style, which maintains an interesting balance between simplicity and detail. The less realistic but still elaborate visual contributes to a light and relaxing atmosphere, which matches the meditative proposal of the game very well. I found that this stylistic choice makes the game more inviting for all audiences, even for those who do not seek extreme realism in the graphics. Regarding the technical quality of the graphics, the game presents generally well-worked textures, with surfaces demonstrating a good sensation of accumulated dirt and cleanliness after using the washer. The highlight goes to the competent use of color and lighting effects, especially in the reflections on metallic surfaces and the contrast between dirty and clean areas. This creates an ever-present visual satisfaction in seeing the progress of the wash, something that I personally think is essential for the immersion and pleasure of the experience. A point that bothers me is that, despite this competent visual work, some textures can appear too simplified on certain objects, especially in parts further away from the scenario or in details that end up not receiving the same meticulous care. This does not compromise the gameplay much, but it makes it clear that the greater focus is on the relaxing and fun experience, and not on photorealism. The graphic ambiance of the scenarios in PowerWash Simulator 2 is another positive point. Each cleaning area has a distinct charm and was detailed to look more alive and interesting, going beyond cold and personalityless surfaces. For example, the city of Muckingham was expanded with larger and lively locations, which makes the view more engaging. I particularly appreciate that the game creates a world where the dirt really seems to be part of the environment, and the effort to remove this layer is visually rewarding. A differential I really liked was the attention to detail during the wash, with dirt that visually reacts to the water jet, showing different layers as they are cleaned. This generates a tactile, almost palpable sensation that is eye-catching, and makes the act of washing much more nostalgic and gratifying. It is a type of meticulous visual feedback that accompanies all progression and maintains interest even in repetitive missions. My personal verdict on the graphics of PowerWash Simulator 2 is that they brilliantly fulfill the role of being pleasant, satisfying, and functional instead of technically impressive. This decision to prioritize a lighter and more charming style, combined with a good use of colors and visual effects, makes the game stand out as a visual experience that relaxes and entertains. Exactly what is expected from a simulator of this genre. For me, it is a perfect combination for relaxing and escaping the pressure of more intense games, keeping the visual always pleasing to the eye, even after many hours of playing. PowerWash Simulator 2 presents a very solid performance, especially when analyzed from the perspective of a simulation title focused on significant visual details and repetitive but satisfying gameplay. On PC, for example, the game maintains a stable rate of 60 FPS most of the time, showing great optimization without requiring extreme hardware, which is a positive point for a game that relies heavily on visual effects of water, dirt, and particles being cleaned. The performance is consistent even on portable platforms like the Steam Deck, where the game runs well, balancing graphic quality and fluidity with moderate battery consumption, which is impressive for a relatively new title full of visual details. In general, even with the visual enhancements compared to the original game, PowerWash Simulator 2 does not seem to have significantly raised the minimum or recommended requirements, which I personally think is a great advantage for those who do not have a top-of-the-line machine. The requirements indicate that a PC with a recent generation Intel Core i5 processor, 8 to 16 gigabytes of RAM, and an intermediate graphics card, such as the RTX 3060 or equivalent, is already sufficient to run the game at the recommended settings, giving access to a beautiful and smooth visual experience without major problems. This assessment takes into account that the game also asks for about 8 gigabytes of storage space, a very reasonable size. The practical experience when playing PowerWash Simulator 2 transmits a very good sense of fluidity. With few times I notice significant frame drops or stutters, which is fundamental to maintain immersion and satisfaction in the cleaning task. This consistent performance supports the gameplay, where the action of washing surfaces with jets of water and soap needs to be precise and responsive so that the player really feels in control. The solid performance on consoles has also been praised, although I focused more on the experience on PC and Steam Deck, where the tests are more detailed. The practical experience when playing PowerWash Simulator 2 transmits a very good sense of fluidity. With few times I notice significant frame drops or stutters, which is fundamental to maintain immersion and satisfaction in the cleaning task. This consistent performance supports the gameplay, where the action of washing surfaces with jets of water and soap needs to be precise and responsive so that the player really feels in control. The solid performance on consoles has also been praised, although I focused more on the experience on PC and Steam Deck, where the tests are more detailed. The addition of the dirt highlight system, which helps visualize hidden particles with a Witcher senses-like visual effect, is one of the details I found most interesting in the game's technical performance. This effect does not weigh heavily on the machine's resources, but greatly improves the gameplay, reducing time lost in useless searches and avoiding the feeling of mechanical repetition that can push the player away. This optimization between graphic performance and practical utility is something that, personally, I value in simulation games. It is also worth noting that, despite the game maintaining a basic mechanic similar to the original, the improvements in the game engine and the new tools, such as the use of equipment to clean high areas, are well utilized thanks to this good technical performance. There is no feeling of freezing or compromised performance when using more complex equipment, which ensures that the player can focus on the immersion and the pleasure of cleaning instead of worrying about technical limitations. Even if the game does not bring a graphic or technical revolution, PowerWash Simulator 2 is an example of how to balance attractive visual elements with stable and accessible performance on various platforms. For me, this makes it not only a natural evolution of the first game, but also a title that can be enjoyed by a larger audience, who values relaxing games with good technical execution without the need for high-performance machines. Buying at launch depends heavily on the player's profile. If you are a fan of the first game and like to enjoy moments of slowing down with relaxing gameplay, the game delivers exactly what it promises with visible improvements and more options to play with friends. On the other hand, if you are not eager for a title focused on cleaning and relaxing simulation, it may be worth waiting for reviews and promotions, as the focus is not for everyone. Another important point is that, being on Game Pass at launch, for those who subscribe to this platform, there is no clear reason to buy the game separately. It is more logical to take advantage of the subscription to try it from day one without additional costs, especially if you want to evaluate if you really enjoy the game style before investing more later. I think PowerWash Simulator 2 succeeds in maintaining the formula that made the first game a public success, with that almost therapeutic touch rare in games. The expansion of features, maps, and co-op mode is truly welcome and can transform simple gameplay sessions into very fun moments, especially when playing with friends. Therefore, for fans of the genre, it is worth playing at launch, even more so because it is available directly on Game Pass. For those who do not have a subscription, it is worth considering whether simulation and relaxation games are a priority now or if they can wait for a promotion. The launch price at $25 makes the entry relatively accessible for a comfort game with good longevity, especially considering the new campaign and the leap in convenience in co-op. Owners of the first game on Steam still get a 15% discount for a limited time after the debut, which inclines the scale to pick it up on day one if the sequel is on your radar. Well, this was my analysis. I hope you liked it and see you next time.